The Adeptus Mechanicus has spent the last 10,000 years worshipping a god that might not even exist. That's not a problem for them, because faith in the Imperium isn't about knowing. It's about believing hard enough that reality shapes itself around your delusions. But when it comes to the machine god, there's an ongoing theological debate so blasphemous that just thinking about it too hard might get you shot for tech heresy. Who is the true Omnissiah? Is it the Void Dragon, the shattered Khitan slumbering beneath Mars, or is it Vashtorr, the rising demonic power of invention and industry? On one side, we have the Void Dragon, a fragmented god of the Necrons, imprisoned and reduced to a whispering enigma. Its presence beneath Mars has fueled the belief that it must be the machine god, guiding the Adeptus Mechanicus through the hum of every cogitator and the whir of every servo. But is this just wishful thinking? The Void Dragon is a being of raw physical power, an ancient force of destruction and control. It understands machines in a cold, clinical way, but does it understand humanity? Or is the cult Mechanicus unknowingly venerating an entity that sees them as little more than disposable tools? Then there's Vashtorr, a demon of chaos, yes, but not in the traditional bloodthirsty sense. He doesn't just corrupt machines, he wants to improve them, to reshape the very concept of invention into something that defies the boundaries of flesh and steel. He is a being of progress, unshackled by the dogma of the Imperium or the cold logic of the Necrons. Unlike the Void Dragon, he is something new, something that has emerged from the Mechanicus' own obsession with machines, faith, and the warp. And if that's true, then Vashtorr might not just be a machine god, he might be the machine god that the Mechanicus has been searching for all along. If you ask a somewhat heretical tech priest who the machine god is, most of them will point straight down, deep beneath Mars, where something ancient and powerful slumbers. This entity, known as the Dragon of Mars, is supposedly a fragment of the Void Dragon, one of the feared Khitan, those star-eating nightmares that the Necrons shattered and enslaved in ages past. And for many, this connection is all the proof they need. The machine god must be the Void Dragon, right? It's easy to see why this idea is popular. The Khitan were once godlike beings of pure energy, intimately tied to the Necrons and their hyper-advanced technology. The Void Dragon, in particular, was associated with mechanical mastery, making it a perfect candidate for the divine figure venerated by the Mechanicus. Even in its fragmented state, the Dragon of Mars is still powerful enough to influence the tech priests, subtly shaping their rituals and beliefs. This is why so many assume that the Omnissiah, the divine avatar of the machine god, must be this ancient Khitan. But there's a huge problem with this theory. The Void Dragon is not whole. The Necrons shattered the Khitan into countless fragments, breaking their once unstoppable power. The largest known piece of the Void Dragon isn't even on Mars. It's locked in chains, wielded as a weapon by the Silent King, ruler of the Necrons. And the Dragon of Mars is just one fragment, a mere shadow of what the Void Dragon used to be, trapped and sealed away. If the machine god is supposed to be an all-powerful entity, why would its supposed true form be locked up, dormant, and doing absolutely nothing? Worse still, the Void Dragon is a purely material entity. The Khitan were never warp beings, and that's a major issue. Humanity isn't just a species of flesh and tech. It's deeply tied to the warp, with an innate psychic connection that shapes its gods and myths. The machine god, if it truly represents humanity's technological faith, must reflect that supernatural aspect. The Mechanicus doesn't just tinker with machines, they worship them, conducting rituals, offering prayers and believing in the power of the machine spirits. That's not just technology, that's metaphysics. And the Void Dragon, for all its power, is nothing but a highly advanced but purely physical entity. So while the Dragon of Mars might be an impressive relic, it fails to check the most important box. It does not embody the machine god, as the Mechanicus actually worships it. The Omnissiah cannot just be a mere fragment. It has to be something more. And that's where Vashtorr comes in. So, if the Void Dragon isn't the machine god, then who is? Well, there's Vashtorr the Archifane, a being so deeply intertwined with technology and invention that calling him a chaos god of machines feels less like a theory and more like an inevitability. But what is Vashtorr really? Unlike the four chaos gods, who represent broad and primal forces like war, desire, decay, and change, Vashtorr is something far more specific. He embodies the union of the machine and the metaphysical. He is industry, invention, and progress twisted into a demonic form. He doesn't just use technology, he is technology, an entity existing between the raw matter of the physical world and the mutability of the warp. His origins are a mystery, but let's speculate for a moment. Most demons emerge as manifestations of emotions or concepts that saturate the warp. Khorne is violence, Slaanesh is indulgence, and so on. But Vashtorr, he feels different. His domain isn't just some vague human impulse, it's deeply constructed, an amalgamation of industry, knowledge, and technological ambition. Could he be a reflection of humanity's relentless drive to innovate? A demon born not just from chaos, but from the Mechanicus's endless pursuit of technological ascension. If gods are shaped by belief, then Vashtorr may be the unintended consequence of every tech priest who ever chanted Binharic prayers to the machine spirits, a dark mirror of the Omnissiah lurking at the edges of the warp, whispering to those who seek knowledge beyond the restrictions of the Imperium. And speaking of those kinds of people, let's talk about the Dark Mechanicum. Officially, the heretic cults of chaos worship no single god. Unofficially, Vashtorr may as well be their patron saint. He provides knowledge, blueprints, and demonic ingenuity to those willing to cast aside the dogma of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The Dark Mechanicum builds and maintains the infernal war machines of chaos, and Vashtorr, well, Vashtorr wants something from them. Is he their god, their benefactor, or just a collaborator in some grander, more sinister design? That's the thing. Vashtorr doesn't act like the other chaos gods. He doesn't demand worship, but he does make deals. And those deals always seem to result in something new and terrible crawling into existence. One thing is certain. Vashtorr is growing. His influence stretches beyond the Dark Mechanicum, beyond even the boundaries of chaos itself. He is making his moves, forging alliances, constructing impossible weapons, and positioning himself as something far greater than just a warp-bound engineer. The machine god is supposed to be the ultimate fusion of technology and divinity. If that's the case, then Vashtorr might not just want the title, he might already become it. The Adeptus Mechanicus loves to act like it's the last bastion of cold, logical, machine-based enlightenment. A priesthood of pure reason, untouched by superstition, driven only by the sacred principles of the machine god. Except that's a complete lie. The Mechanicus isn't some enlightened technocracy, it's a bizarre cybernetic cult that treats turning on a cogitator the same way a medieval peasant treats lighting a candle in a church. They don't understand technology. They worship it, drenched in ritual, superstition, and elaborate rites that are indistinguishable from magic to the average Imperial citizen. It's not science, it's faith in the machine. And that makes them a hell of a lot closer to the forces of chaos than they'd ever admit. Now contrast that with the Dark Mechanicum. They don't just pray to their machines, they let their machines answer back. Where the Adeptus Mechanicus treats technology like a god that must be appeased, the Dark Mechanicum embraces it in its raw, evolving, and often horrific form. Their machines don't just function, they live, infused with demonic essence, constantly shifting and reshaping themselves in ways that would give a tech priest a stroke. But here's the real question. If the Dark Mechanicum is so deeply intertwined with Vashtorr, does that mean they've actually found the true machine god? Think about it. The Omnissiah is supposed to be the divine intelligence that guides and empowers all machines. The Imperium insists that this is the Emperor, but let's be real. The Emperor couldn't care less about the Mechanicus's religious ramblings. Meanwhile, Vashtorr actively interacts with machines, enhancing them, reshaping them, and guiding their evolution into new and terrifying forms. The Dark Mechanicum doesn't worship some distant, silent god. They work with theirs, receiving knowledge, blueprints, and power in return. If faith in the machine god is supposed to grant understanding and mastery over technology, then by all available evidence, Vashtorr is the one actually answering prayers. And that raises a horrifying possibility. What if the Adeptus Mechanicus has been worshipping the wrong god this entire time? What if all their binaric prayers, their machine chants, and their sacred rituals have been feeding something other than the Emperor? If belief shapes the warp, and millions of tech priests pour their faith into the machine god, then what happens if that faith has never been going to the Emperor at all? What if Vashtorr, lurking at the edges of real space, has been listening this entire time? If Vashtorr is the true machine god, then the Adeptus Mechanicus is in for an existential crisis of apocalyptic proportions. The tech priests have spent millennia blindly reciting their catechisms, performing their sacred maintenance rites, and slathering unholy amounts of incense onto every cog and servo. But what if all of that devotion, all of that faith, has been going to the wrong god? The thought alone would be enough to make an Archmagos spontaneously combust out of sheer cognitive dissonance. The idea that Vashtorr could be the machine god isn't just an academic horror, it's a real problem for the Mechanicus. If the true Omnissiah has been whispering from the shadows, answering prayers in ways they refuse to acknowledge, then that raises a terrifying possibility. What if the Adeptus Mechanicus is primed for a massive fall to chaos? Not just a few rogue tech priests or some heretics skulking around in the eye of terror. We're talking about a large-scale, systematic shift toward Vashtorr, all because they were halfway there already. After all, if Vashtorr truly understands and empowers machines better than the Emperor ever did, what's stopping more tech priests from realizing they've been praying to an absentee landlord while a real god of machines is waiting with open, spidery arms? And then there's the wild card, the Void Dragon. If this Khitan fragment buried beneath Mars really is the god the Mechanicus believes in, then we might be heading toward the ultimate machine-based holy war. A battle between two deities, one an ancient shattered entity of raw physical dominance, the other an emergent warp-born intelligence sculpted from humanity's own belief in machine divinity. If the Void Dragon fully awakens, it won't just be a battle of ideology, it'll be literal war between two machine gods, with the Adeptus Mechanicus caught in the middle. Do they side with their old, broken, half-imprisoned deity, or do they embrace the new, terrifying god that actually listens? In the end, the Imperium may not be ready for this truth. The Ecclesiarchy, the Inquisition, and every zealot in power would rather exterminate the Mechanicus than let them start questioning who they've really been worshipping. But Vashtorr isn't just a theory. He's active, he's growing, and he's already reshaping the future of the galaxy. Whether they like it or not, the tech priests may soon have to make a choice: cling to the crumbling dogma of the past, or embrace the dark, chittering salvation that has been waiting for them all along. So, after all this, who is the true machine god? Even the Mechanicus doesn't have a clear answer to this question, even though they believe otherwise. But let's be real. Their entire religion is built on a foundation of red tape, skulls, and outright denial. If the machine god is supposed to represent the ultimate fusion of divinity and technology, then Vashtorr makes a hell of a case for being the rightful deity of machines. Unlike the Void Dragon, who is little more than the Silent King's toy, Vashtorr actively embodies the chaotic, inventive, and ritualistic nature of the Mechanicus itself. He's not just a god of machines, he's a god of industry, of unhinged experimentation. Sound familiar? But if Vashtorr is the true machine god, then what happens next? Does the Adeptus Mechanicus eventually realize that they've been praying to the wrong entity this entire time? Does the Dark Mechanicum get the last laugh as their actual god rises to claim his rightful place? And if the Void Dragon ever truly awakens, does that set the stage for a battle between two opposing machine gods, one of order and one of innovation? Either way, the Mechanicus might be forced to make a choice between the past and the future, between cold, ancient logic and the raw, ever-evolving power of chaos. But what do you think? Have the tech priests been worshipping the wrong god all along, or is Vashtorr just another player in the endless game of galactic power? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then.